Hello and welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I'm your host, Andrew Moses, and with me today is a very special guest, Keith Urgo, Associate Head Coach for Penn State Men's Basketball. Hello, Keith.
How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. It's great to have you on the show, and I hope you're doing well, and looking forward to a great conversation here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of the show, man. And I just quickly want to say thank you to so many folks out there on the front lines helping us each and every day through this pandemic. And those people have to be shouted out pretty much anytime anybody gets a chance. They're literally life heroes at the moment, and we appreciate all that they do. I just wanted to make sure I said thank you. Thank you for having me on, man.
You got it, and thank you, Keith, for that. Well, like everybody, Keith, you and the Penn State basketball program, were affected by this pandemic. You guys were amidst your best season in 9 seasons with the program. If I remember correctly, you guys rattled off 20 wins out of your first 25 games. Had a couple hiccups at the end, but you were a lock for the NCAA tournament, and the Big Ten, makes the announcement that the Big Ten tournament is postponed. The NCAA tournament gets postponed. Talk a minute about that, but specifically, around how the coaching staff and the players, handled, these unprecedented circumstances during a really high point for the program that you've been building for so many years.
Yeah, you know what? It was unfortunately it was an abrupt end to an historic season. We tied most wins in the history of Penn State men's basketball, and our senior class broke on pretty much every record that existed. 76 wins total in the Big Ten. That was a record for any class. Obviously, Lamar Stevens and Mike Watkins and Grant Hazel, our seniors, and Curtis Jones. We can't thank them enough for what they did for our program. Obviously, we'll get into Lamar, I'm sure, in a little bit, but his legacy will live on forever. And, Wednesday night, obviously, when we're playing Indiana, we're live scouting the game against Nebraska, and you could see towards the end, Fred Hoiberg, something wasn't right, and he ends up leaving the bench. And we left shortly thereafter the arena. And when we got back to the hotel, the news had broke that they kind of quarantined, so to speak, both teams in their locker rooms in the arena. And we figured this is a problem, especially if he was taken to the hospital later that night and found to be positive. We figured that was going to be a big deal. We got up the next morning and we went to shoot around. And I got to tell you, it was the most spirited, most energetic, most focused shoot around we had all year. We struggled down the backstretch. We had some injuries, some illness, but we were fully healthy. We had a couple unbelievable days of practice leading up to the big tournament. We had some incredible team meetings. The team had their own players meeting. It was the most focused, most healthy we had been since Michigan State.
Wow.
Myron Jones was a top 10 scorer in the Big Ten. Had an unbelievable game at Michigan State. It really had a fantastic season up to that point. Michigan State, he had 6 threes. We beat him on the road. He plays fantastic. It's mono. And as a result, he's out for the next almost month. And however, he didn't, so that hurt us a lot. And then Mike was hurt and some things. We were finally healthy. So we have an incredible shoot around that Thursday. But on our way back from the shoot around, we get back to the hotel, and we hear that they pulled, can't remember who was on the court, right after our shoot around. They came on the court to warm up for that 12 noon game. And whoever was on the court, they pulled them off. And once we heard that, we were all told to come downstairs, Sandy Bar, the whole bit. And they kind of informed the team that the Big Ten had decided to cancel the tournament, which some other tournaments and some other leagues had started to do prior to the Big Ten making the announcement. So you figured something wasn't going to be going our way. So the team, we had a meeting, and we were pretty crushed. we were still at that point hoping that it would be figured out and the NCAA tournament would be happening.
Sure.
I actually had stayed in Indianapolis with my wife and children who drove, and the team flew back. Well, the period of time they went to the airport, they were on their flight. While they were on their flight headed back to State College, the announcement came that the NCAA tournament had been canceled. So unfortunately, when the team landed, they got that news. I was not there, and I think part of me is happy I wasn't there, and a part of me was sad I wasn't there. Because when they got back to the arena from the bus, they all went in the locker room and had another team meeting to kind of cope with the announcement of the NCAA tournament being canceled. So, but obviously, you know, it was an emotional day. And at the time, you were weren't sure if the NCAA tournament really mattered or this was all just kind of an overreaction. Well, within 24 to 48 hours, everybody quickly realized this was not an overreaction. They canceled the NBA season and so on and so forth, and things started to happen rapidly. And obviously, for the health of all humanity, this was the best decision for all of us, our student athletes, and for society. So it became a global issue, and we're grateful that the Big Ten had the foresight to do it when they did. But as a result, it put an abrupt end to what we believe was going to be a historic run in the Big Ten tournament. We were prepared to make a run. We had felt as good as we had ever felt. And honestly, we couldn't wait to get to the NCAA tournament. We were so excited to play someone different. We had had a grueling Big Ten season, arguably the best Big Ten from top to bottom in basketball it had ever been. And we were right there to win it with about a week and a half left. We had beaten teams like Purdue on the road, Michigan State on the road. We felt like there was absolutely, I mean, no team that we could face in the NCAA tournament on a neutral site that we wouldn't be better than or didn't feel like we were capable of beating. So we were just incredibly excited to make a run, and unfortunately, that never came to fruition. But doesn't diminish the success that our senior class had, that our team had, and how proud we are as a staff to finally get to a point where we believe the program is headed in an incredible direction. And this just wasn't a one-off. We believe our guys coming back are more hungry than ever. I was just mentioning to you offline that typically at the end of the year, you're exhausted and tired and you're ready for it to end. Well, not this year. And with the abrupt ending, our guys didn't even take more than a week off, and they are ready to get back to work. They're chomping at the bit. Our leadership is fantastic. And we have a lot to thank. We have a lot like Lamar and Mike and those guys who left the program the way they did. We have them to thank for that.
Well, that's phenomenal. And what you talk about, Keith, is I think mentality, right, and resilience. You know, when I hear the words you described there, and you were just named one of the top assistant coaches in all of America in college basketball. So congratulations on that. But knowing you as well as I do over the years, right, I know that a large part of that is you, and you as a recruiter, you as a leader. Talk about building a program and building a team. You guys have been at this for 9 seasons now, and every year it seems to get a little bit better, and the formula starts to work a little bit more. Talk to me a bit about recruiting. What do you look for in these individuals besides what they can do on the court? Because we know you're looking for talented basketball players. What are you looking for in the people that you're recruiting to the program?
First off, thanks for that. That's an award that goes out to our entire staff, and you don't do that without great players. So, and a great leader in Pat Chambers. So I appreciate that mention. But I'm grateful for everybody on our staff for that. As far as recruiting, you know what? It's changed over the course of our 9 seasons at Penn State. It's really about culture. And in order to develop our culture when we first got there, it got a little hairy. 5 months after we got the job, everything kind of went down. The big announcement at Penn State, the big scandal, and that it was already a little difficult to recruit to Penn State, and it became very difficult for the next 12 to 16 months after all that news broke. So that kind of set us back a little bit. So early on, we had to take pretty much anybody and everybody we could to form a competitive basketball team in the Big Ten. And then when we were kind of getting through that rough patch, we were able to start to develop our culture the way that we wanted it. And what we did was we've tried to seek out relationships with great players and great families and great schools in specific regions when we first started. And that was really the 95, the Northeast corridor, up and down 95 from Connecticut down to really Northern Virginia, because that's where I'm from, Washington, D.C. That's where a lot of my relationships are from. Pat Chambers, Philadelphia. We both coached in Villanova. For 5 years, I developed really heavy relationships with folks in Philadelphia. So we figured if we could take the Northeast type player, the tough, the rugged, talented player, and we could mold them into Big Ten player, we felt like we could be extremely competitive in the Big Ten. And at a place like Penn State, for whatever reason, they had struggled to bring in kids from the Northeast region, like Philadelphia and DC. And so we started to really hone in early on kids that were freshmen and sophomores. And obviously that boded well. You know, we got a big transfer in DJ Newble out of Philadelphia. He kind of started it. You know, obviously development with Tim Frazier having been there, Ed DeChellis and his staff had Tim Frazier, who was a hidden gem. And we dove into him, and he obviously had a tremendous career. DJ Newble, you know, he convinced DJ Newble out of Philadelphia, who was at Southern Miss at the time, to come. As a result, DJ Newble, we hone in on Shep Garner and Roman Catholic. We developed that relationship for literally 3 years. So we started to realize, okay, we're going to go after kids that are just under the high major radar, so to speak. They might have one or two other offers, and we're going to develop incredible relationships with them when they're really young. And by the time they're potentially making their decision, we will be like family. So we did that with Shep Garner and his family. And we focused on guys that had a good family nucleus, guys who were considered really good kids in their community, were on good AAU teams, but didn't have to be the star, and coming from high-level high schools like the Philadelphia Catholic League, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, some of the best high school basketball in the country with the best coaches and the best schools academically that could come in and compete right off the bat. So Shep Garner, and then obviously when we were recruiting Shep Garner, we started to develop relationships with Tony Carr and Lamar Stevens. Those relationships and Nazir Bostic, they started when those kids were literally freshmen and sophomores. So by the time they were making their decision as seniors, we had developed incredible relationships for 3 or 4 years with them, their family, their sisters, their brothers, their uncles, their high school coaches, their grade school coaches, you know, and we tried to make it as much of a family environment as you could possibly make it. And then Penn State speaks for itself. When you finally get kids on campus, which
I agree.
had been the struggle for so many years. Yeah, when you get kids on campus for a football game, they're blown away. It's like, wait a second, I can come here. I'm 2 hours, 45 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm 3 hours from DC. I'm 4 hours from New York, whatever it might be. I can still come play in a Big Ten conference. I can come to this place, kind of learn to become a man on my own, but still be close enough to home. And, you know, you come to Penn State for a whiteout, and you have never been there before, and you're a coach or you're a player, you are literally shell-shocked. You're blown away.
Yeah.
And then you get them in a room and you talk about the alumni base and the degree for Penn State and what that means, and really life after basketball. And when you're approaching and recruiting kids with great families, intelligent, articulate, and educated families, they see life after basketball is really important. Okay. And on the Northeast, if you have a Penn State degree, chances are you walk into any office at any time, there's going to be a Penn State or someone who knows someone who went to Penn State. There's going to be some sort of connection. The network is absolutely fantastic and unlike anywhere else that we've ever been. So, you know, it kind of tells itself. So, you know, you have the brand, then we developed the culture. And as a result, we started to, you get one, then you get two, and then they help get the third and the fourth, and then you get Tony Carr, Lamar Stevens, and Nazir Basta come in. And then Lamar Stevens, obviously Seth Lundy, he was at Roman Catholic as a freshman, and you use Lamar, he starts recruiting Seth Lundy. So players start to really recruit players that they want to play with. And that's how all of a sudden now
That's
you
how it
see
starts to
our
evolve.
success in recruiting. Yeah. So it really is about players. I mean, we develop relationships early on, and then the players, we get them on campus early. The players start to develop really strong bonds, and they recruit each other. And that's kind of how it's happened. But as far as the culture is concerned, we've really started to develop relationships with kids that are superstar on and off the court. And
Sure.
you see that in Lamar. You see that in Myron Jones and Miles Dredd, all the kids that we have coming in, high-level academic students with tremendous parents. And now the sky is the limit because, a lot of times when you have players that struggle in the classroom or struggle socially, when they show up to play on the court, they're not all Michael Jordan, where they can just turn it on and turn it off and be in the moment. If you have things weighing on the back of your head, like those social issues or those academic issues, chances are you're a step slow on the court. Well, now we have guys that are really high academic kids, really tremendous in the community. So when they show up to the court, it's all basketball all the time. You don't have to worry about all that other stuff. So that's why we believe that, our program's headed in such a tremendous direction.
It sure is, and let's talk about that work ethic and going the extra mile a bit. So this show, Everybody Pulls the Tarp, is really predicated around a philosophy that I have, that great teams and great organizations are powered by individuals who contribute far beyond the boundaries of their job description. And I know some of your players, and I know the program that you've built, and you all surely pull the tarp and do your part, like you described in the community. I can recall, you may not remember this, but a long time ago, your players were supporting a charity event that we were organizing in town in State College, and you and Coach Chambers said the players would be there and that the team would be there, and we would always get increasingly worse weather every year. And I remember saying every year that one of these years this basketball team is just not going to show up. It's so cold. And sure enough, every year the players show up. Sometimes they're bundled in their winter jackets, but you and the players always showed up, and you always showed up for the community, and it always left an impression on me and left an impression on those in the community. And even though maybe the wins weren't piling up as fast as everybody wanted, I think that work ethic and that desire to do the extra things, to be part of something bigger than just basketball on the court, made a difference to people. Can you talk about that for a minute, and how all those little things that the program does outside the bounds of just playing basketball contribute?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are on the outside don't necessarily understand the time demands on these guys and what they're asked to do, not only from a basketball standpoint, academic standpoint, but also represent the university. And I think that comes with having so much pride in Penn State and the community. State College is a really special place. And obviously, knowing basketball specifically, you got to try to get the community involved. I mean, early on, it really starts with Pat Chambers, obviously. You had mentioned his energy, his work ethic. When we first started, we knew we had to go into the hub and jump on tables and throw T-shirts, and we were willing and ready to do whatever, whenever, to try to generate some energy and some buzz with the student body and the community. So it started with him. And community engagement is something we talk a lot about with our team, and gratitude, understanding that, just because you play a game of basketball, you have the opportunity to give back. And with those 750,000 living, breathing, paying alums, there's a lot of kids and a lot of people that you have the ability to touch. So giving back and being grateful for the opportunity to be a part of college basketball, but specifically the Big Ten and Penn State University, it's kind of an obligation to give back. But the kids that we've started to recruit and have recruited over our time, they embrace it. They absolutely love it. They have incredible pride for their university, and it's pretty simple when you get out into the community and you see the passion and the excitement that these folks have for Penn Staters, let alone Penn State basketball. It gets your juices flowing, and you're excited to get out in the community and do things like Autism Speaks. And I commend you, obviously. I remember being there, 9 seasons ago or whatever it was. And, the weather might not have been great. It got progressively worse, but the crowd seemed to get progressively bigger because of the work that you and others have done on behalf of Autism Speaks. The event keeps getting bigger and better, stronger, and it's a testament to you. And we're actually thrilled and honored to be a part of such things like that. So pretty simple. And when you develop relationships with players, and you kind of, our job is to try to educate them, not about on the basketball court, but to become great men. And if we do that and we develop great relationships, they're willing to dive on the floor for us and run through a brick wall for you. If they know you care about more about what happens after basketball and for life than you actually do about what happens on the court. They tend to want to do whatever you ask. And those are the kind of relationships that Pat Chambers has with his players, our staff has with our players. And as a result, we really enjoy getting out into the community. And the community is receptive to all of that. There's so much going on at Penn State. They love their athletics. It's a college town. It's pretty incredible to be a part of.
Well, thank you for all of that, and obviously thank you for all your support of the Autism Speaks program over the years. We couldn't have done it without you and your guys as well. You've talked a lot about work ethic, and you mentioned Michael Jordan, and obviously we all just witnessed this great documentary, The Last Dance. I'm curious how talk for a minute about how one player can transform an entire culture, because it certainly seems to me as an independent observer of that documentary series that Michael Jordan had this ability to make those around him better.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. And obviously, I think it was for Penn State, for college, it's a little bit different because you're not going to have those guys for 10 plus years. You got them for 2, 3, 4 years. So it really starts with the leadership, and that's Pat Chambers. That is, to me, the most important piece to a college basketball program. And what are you looking for? And in Pat Chambers, you have someone who's got incredibly high values, combined with the energy and the passion, and that's necessary. And really, the gift of understanding molding young men is the ability to change, and having the ability to change lives. Will only there's nothing more fulfilling than that. Lifelong relationships. So it really starts with Pat Chambers, and the culture is that. Having high values, developing strong, authentic relationships with your staff, with everybody in the athletic department, and with your players. And if you develop strong, authentic relationships with your players, all of a sudden, when you're asking them to go through a 3-hour practice and dive on the floor, do charge drills, to literally run through Gatorade coolers, when you're on the road at Minnesota, and our first team in 2011, we went to our shoot around and we rolled the ball off the raised court, and you're saying, we want you to dive head first off the court, get used to it, and without hesitation, Tim Frazier's the first one. He runs, sprints, literally dives head first, goes off into the stands, and we had only been with him a brief time, but he had understood. And he had already developed a relationship with Pat Chambers that I'll do whatever you want me to, because I know you care about me as a human being. I think that's where it starts. And that's why we believe that, we have something that's sustainable for the future. It's not just something we tried to come in and win one year and get out or anything like that. We wanted to build a culture and a program that we believe will be a fixture of the Big Ten for years and years to come. Now, it took a little longer than we had hoped, but we feel like we're finally there. I think, professional sports, yeah, you get one player and it transcends the locker room because, you can sign a long-term deal, 7-10 years. Michael Jordan was, in Chicago for 13 plus, but, in college, it's a little different having guys for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Obviously you need really high-leveled, high-talented players. But, it's the leadership that I think changes. That means everything in college basketball. And I think Pat James is one of the best in the nation.
He sure is, and as a Penn State alum, you feel the energy from day one. Now, if we flip this a little bit, one of the things I was wondering, watching these stories with Michael Jordan, and obviously it's different, NBA and college basketball, but can the intensity of one player or or a coach, could the intensity ever boil over to be too much that it becomes counterproductive, right? Is there one guy on the team, maybe it's a team captain, who is so intense that it's disrupting the apple cart? Because I was watching Michael Jordan and I'm wondering, okay, maybe this is a group of guys that's receptive to that. But what if there was a group of guys there that wasn't receptive to that? How does that work? And how do you navigate that as a leader?
Yeah, you know what? I think you have to know your boundaries, and if that's happening every single day, yeah, that's a big problem. But if it's happening every once in a while, and it's just increasing the level of competitiveness and practice, we had a few guys like that, like a kid like Tony Carr, every day in practice, every drill, every scrimmage, it was so competitive with him and Nazir Bostic and Shep Garner and guys that have played together for a while, that they really, sometimes you can just step back as a coach and you kind of let them get into it a little bit, creates a competitive environment. And if it gets to become too much, yeah, you could call it quits for that day or that drill, whatever it might be. But quite honestly, you have to have that fire. You have to have a little bit of passion. And, you see in the documentary, Steve Kerr had that. He finally stood up to Michael Jordan and fired back. And I think as a result, you saw it change their relationship. He no longer picked on him, and the rest is history. And I think sometimes you need a little bit of competitive fire in practice, whether it has to be started by a coach somehow or whether or not you got big time players that are going to kind of create that, bring that out of their teammates. But it's definitely necessary, in my opinion, to have a high level basketball program. And it's okay. It's okay to get competitive. It's okay to have, some skirmishes and some scuffles. That means you care, in my opinion. That means you're passionate about what you're doing and you want to be successful, and you're not, just like, I don't really care about this, just walking off the court.
Right.
You care and you're invested so much time and energy,
it means you care.
Sometimes it's going to get a little heated. Yeah,
it means you care, and people see you care.
Yeah, and we call them, it's funny, we call them carefrontations, not confrontations in our program.
Interesting.
A great term, I think, that Pat Chambers came up with early on. When we were talking about how we would hold each other accountable as a staff. We talked about carefrontations. Look, I absolutely love you. I want you to be the best you can be. So this isn't a confrontation. This isn't a confrontation. This is a carefrontation. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do, because I absolutely love you and want you to be the best person you can be. And as a result, our team started to do that. Our players started to do that with each other. And when you have teams like this past year and the NIT run towards the back end of that year anyway, that are holding each other accountable without the coaches doing so, and they're having confrontations with one another, that's when you got something brewing, and you finally gotten to the point where the coaches can step back and it's a players run program. And those are definitely the most successful because those are the tightest teams.
Wow, what a philosophy. Keith, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to catch up a bit today. Some great insights and look into a program that has tremendous leadership with you, Coach Chambers, and the rest of the staff leading it. Thanks so much for your time today, and stay safe, be well, and hopefully we're back in the Bryce Jordan Center one day soon, cheering you guys on. Take care, my friend.
Hey, man, Andrew, thank you very much for having me. Truly an honor. I'd also like to thank all those folks that typically would be at the Bryce Jordan Center. We can't wait to get back to you. The Legion of Blue and all of our incredible fans this past year. And, we're looking forward to getting back on campus, and our guys are working incredibly hard right now. They're ready too. So be prepared for another fantastic season moving forward. And again, thanks so much, Andrew. I really do appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for being here. Take care, Keith.
Have a great day.